Welcome. Iris and I will take you on a journey on how we leverage DevOps principles at Climeworks. Climeworks was founded in 2009, so the same year the first DevOps days happened. Climeworks is on a very ambitious scale-up journey. We'll show you some numbers and growth later. We would like to show you some challenges that we faced, what we did, and also how we had some fun while doing it. Our goal is to inspire you to maybe try out one or two things and just improve from where you currently are. So let's zoom out a bit. Why does Climeworks even exist? Most of you have probably seen a chart like that. So on this chart, you see the global emissions every year are about 40 gigatons of CO2. The world needs to drastically reduce these emissions to reach the climate targets. But even after reducing 90% of the emissions, there will still be emissions left. So we do actually need to go negative. So we need to remove carbon from the atmosphere. And this is called carbon dioxide removal. It's estimated that we need to remove about 5 to 10 gigatons every year in 2050. But how much is even a gigaton, right? Just sounds like a lot. So if you take the shoes that I'm wearing right now and put them in a box, they're about 1 kilogram. And if you fill a full-size shipping container with those, there are about 8,000 shoe boxes in that container. So that's about 8 tons. So we will need about 125 million shipping containers to put in a gigaton of shoes. If we stack them end on end, they would reach from the Earth to the Moon 4 times over. And the Earth and the Moon are actually to scale on this chart, and also distance. The rest not really, obviously. So how do we get the CO2 out of the atmosphere? We also built containers, the ones you're seeing here, and use a chemical reaction to filter the CO2 out of the air, and then can close them off, reverse the cycle, and store the CO2 in the ground safely. I said before that we need to remove about 5 to 10 gigatons. So how far are we? What you see here, one of those units can do about 1,000 tons a year. So we will need to build a literal 1 million of these. So that's a lot of shoeboxes to still be packed. But Climeworks does a lot more than just building these containers, as you'll see a bit later on our whole value stream. So who are we? My name is Jonas. I have about 18 years of experience in IT. I started in the financial industry. I've spent about 5 years at Silke, and for the last 2 years, I'm part of Climeworks.
Hello, my name is Iris, and I'm a software engineer. I started my path into IT a little over 15 years ago. Mostly I work on backend development, cloud, and DevOps topics. As you can probably see on this slide, I actually don't work for Climeworks. I work for Netlight in Zurich. We are an international digital consultancy company. And during last year, I had the pleasure to work together with Climeworks on the topics we are today presenting here. So you already heard about the goals of Climeworks, about the products, the containers they build. But to understand what happens inside Climeworks, we need to look at their value chain. I like to describe Climeworks as covering basically the entire value stream of an industry that is just newly being created. So they actually have to start with building the market. They have to advocate for their products and find clients that are interested in buying them. Afterwards, they need to cover research and development. They need to actually develop the technology, build the products, the containers we've seen before, manufacture them. Once we have this, as Jonas has mentioned, we need to scale. We need a lot of them. So we need to build and engineer large plants containing a lot of these containers. These plants need to be maintained and operated. And then at the very end, we can actually deliver our product, CDR, carbon dioxide removal, to our clients. And here also make sure that it's verified, so our clients actually know that yes, that what they have paid for has been done. As you can probably already see in this value stream, there is a very strong focus on hardware, on physical products. So to support this value stream, you need chemists, you need mechanical engineers, you need plant technicians. But obviously, we are here at the DevOps days. So where does DevOps come in? To understand this, we need to go one level deeper. Here you can see a selection of the departments that are required to support this wide value chain of Climeworks. Also some classic support departments like HR and finance. To support this, we need a network of applications so that these departments are able to do their daily work. These tools have been often bought and to fulfill some specific purposes. And this network of applications is basically the scope of our DevOps team. We are enabling the core functions and supporting functions to do their daily work. Now, some of these tools have to be highly customized and extended to fulfill the specific needs of the company. For example, our ERP system might require some customized reports for finance. Or when we import and export goods between different countries, we need to make sure that we have the data entered properly for this. Also, our product lifecycle management is a system that needs to be highly customized. In addition, all these systems need to be integrated, they need to be hosted. So for example, we might need to synchronize data for employees between different systems. And this, well, is where the IT, the DevOps team comes in. And now, what is actually the team? That is a question we've discussed quite a few times. Sometimes we talk about Climeworks IT, sometimes we talk about the service delivery team or the DevOps team. It always depends a bit on which perspective we take. They're all kind of in the same area, but a little bit different. But kind of the summary is we have a lot of applications to support, a lot of internal clients, and often more applications and topics than we actually have developers available. Now, this probably still does not sound very DevOpsy. Typically, when we talk about DevOps, we think about some fancy new tech stack, some standalone system that we're building, or maybe some platform engineering approach when we're talking about scaling. But we're still way too small to even think about that. So far, we've talked about ERP and about other enterprise software. That's not usually associated with DevOps. So I would like to ask you, if you think of ERP, who of you thinks, yes, DevOps? Yes, I kind of saw this coming. I mean, I know we have some people in here that definitely work in this intersection. For example, Dirk, our Master of Ceremonies. But we would argue it is still pretty rare. I didn't see that many hands before. And also at Climeworks, we're not talking about just one system, but an entire network. And this basically describes the first challenge we want to share with you. The unique business model of Climeworks results in a highly diverse set of technologies, platforms, and clients that need to be supported. And we don't typically build the applications, but we customize them, we extend them, we host them, we integrate them. And we're way too small to even think about platform engineering. Mentioning size, let's look at some impressive growth numbers.
On this chart, you see the growth of the IT team over the last 2 years. On the very left, you see that about 2 years ago, there were 4 people in total in the IT unit as a whole in Climeworks. And by now we've grown to about 25 people. The bottom 2 lines show our developer capacity, or like our technically oriented people within that team that Iris mentioned, supporting all these function. So we see that we grew from basically 0 to about 5 people by now. So we're still very small. If you overlay the company size onto this, you see that in the same time frame, we grew from about 130 employees to almost 500 employees in 2 years. If we would extend this growth linearly by 2030, so in 6 years, the company would reach a size of about 10,000 employees. So this also means that a lot of people are actually joining the company, a lot of experienced people from different areas and different companies from which are already wearing gigantic shoes, right? And they bring in a lot of ideas and they ask for more, better, and newer tooling every time. This brings us to our second challenge. As I said, the very small team with only very few technical people supporting all these different needs and having to figure out which are the most valuable projects to actually work on and invest our time in while already supporting the existing things we have. So how did we start running? As Iris mentioned, integration between systems was very important. And we wanted to take more ownership on how this was happening to improve the speed and the flexibility that we had. As usual, you're offered basically 2 choices. Either you buy a system that can do, or that you can use as a basis for this, or you make one yourself. Buying was a bit tricky for us because it would have meant doing another evaluation, figuring out another tool to buy, and we were already handling lots of systems. And we saw the opportunity on if we make it ourselves, we could be much more flexible and also much quicker to actually get started. This also meant that we could actually deploy the first components like in weeks' time after deciding that. We built this on internally already known technology and platform, namely on Azure, Kubernetes, and Python. Our integration layer features 3 types of components today. One type is like a wrapper component, abstracting existing systems, simplifying their API or standardizing them, and maybe also solving 1 or 2 quirks centrally. Second type is a classic synchronous API, allowing where we can create dedicated APIs for specific use cases. For example, in this case, our e-commerce integration from our website. While still being able to provide proper authentication, web application firewall, etc. The third type is a scheduled component, as many of you have probably seen, executing tasks on a regular basis. This also allowed us to have a central piece of monitoring using open telemetry, so we could observe all the interactions that actually happen between the systems. Speaking of metrics.
Yes, we don't only want to monitor our systems, but we also want to measure how our team is doing. For this, we have 4 KPIs. KPI number 1, delivery frequency. How often do we push to production? KPI number 2, delivered value. How much business value do we actually create with the pushes to production? KPI number 3, team happiness. Because, it would be nice to also have some fun, right? KPI number 4, not only our team should be having fun, also our business should be happy with what we're doing and how we're doing this. So the first 2 KPIs, delivery frequency and delivered value, are actually tracked automatically. We will see some numbers shortly. We can use the data we have in Azure DevOps, where we track all the tickets and releases and everything. KPI number 3 and 4 are tracked using periodic surveys that we send out to get a feeling of how things are going at the moment. Now, why do we have those KPIs? First of all, these are the things that we want to increase, that we want people to optimize for. The delivered value, for example, is measured based on the number of features and bug fixes we push to production, combined with a measure of business priority. So if you now feel like, hey, I just want to gain your metric and I want to push my delivered value by writing really small stories, I say, fantastic, we love small stories, please do that. Also, there are some secondary effects. For example, the delivery frequency, we believe if you make delivery easy, if you make releasing easy, then everything else will follow. And team happiness can also be an indicator of how efficient is our collaboration, how good are we working together. So, as promised, let's dive into some numbers for the first two KPIs. Here you can see from the beginning of last year, the delivery frequency. What you actually see here is the numbers on a 4-week rolling window, which we use to smooth out some short-term effects. At the same time, you can still see some seasonality, like the dip you see in the middle, that was summer. And fairly at the end where we have a huge dip again, that was Christmas, because those are times when, well, not that much is happening because people like to vacation during that time. Now, let's overlay the delivered value. Again, here as well, 4-week rolling window to have the same overview. And as we can see, there is definitely correlation visible. So our assumption that if we make delivering easy, we also deliver more value seems to hold true. But as probably some of you have also seen, we do have some outliers. Here we have 2 spikes where we have very high delivered value, even though the delivery frequency does not really correlate with that. There are always 4 points that are high due to our 4-week rolling window. And that shows at least one system has been delivering in huge chunks. And now I'm not going to ask you which system it is, because I think you might be guessing it wrong. It's not our ERP system. It's actually our website. Due to a non-trivial tech stack renewal, they were forced to, at least in this time, do some fairly big releases. That shows that small releases are not always possible, but quite often, and we should try to aim for that. And of course, I also want to throw in some nice trend line here. We can see that both delivery frequency and delivered value are going up over this time. It's not a straight journey, obviously, but improvements are always done step by step and not necessarily in huge leaps. Now, Jonas will share some approaches of us to make sure to keep the delivery frequency high.
So how do you motivate people to make releases often? Would you be motivated to work on the next release 2.7.3? Probably not so much, right? So our goal was to make releasing fun and easy, right? So we started off by giving our releases pretty names. One example would be Magenta Mercury. We went for alliteration, so both words starting with the same name, because that gives a nice ring to it. And also it's much easier to remember than just single names. Also, we progressed through the alphabet. So that gave us quite a nice sense of progression. So this would be Magenta Mercury, then the next one would be neon nitrogen, orange oxygen, pink plutonium. In this specific instance, also our pattern was a color and a chemical element. But we choose usually different patterns for different systems. Based on this, you can then very easily start thinking of a release image, right? So this is Magenta Mercury. After that, it's just a very small step to creating then nice release announcements for a company internally. And this is where it starts kicking. Because we're living in the age of generative AI, creating these images is actually quite easy, right? So you see a selection here of some release announcements and also some release images. Middle to the left there also, for example, is Bossy Banana. Naming is one of my favorite ones. Yeah, but these also obviously serve a purpose, right? You also want to inform people when a release is happening and what does it contain. So you need to inform about content and timing. So you'd probably say, yeah, that's quite some effort to then curate all of this, right? Well, this is where automation comes in. As part of our team happiness survey, one of the things was easy release, like one of the questions we asked. And in one of the retros, we basically were discussing possible solution and said, yeah, obviously we need to automate this better, right? So all our data, like our work tracking happens in Azure DevOps. So using Power Automate, we connected this to Teams-based approvals for business testing approval, as well as internal approval for the announcement. So we could check for them to be correct. And once all these approvals were given, these Teams notifications or like these Teams posts were automatically created by this automation. As Iris mentioned before, this would also enable us to do all the tracking of the KPIs, etc., using Power BI directly with the data from Azure DevOps. But then you say, it's still quite some effort then to do these names and release images, right? That's where this tool came in. Based on or using AWS Party Rock, we also created this tool that would allow you to insert the pattern on the top left, in this case, an adjective and a fruit, and your letter. And on the right side, it would then generate your release name and the release image. But honestly, like once you hit your stride, creativity of people started kicking in, and they created release names fully automatically. They came running into the office and said, I had a great idea. Our next release is going to be called Golden Gold. So this was a lot of prep work, like until the release or up to the release. So what happened after the release?
Yeah, we also had this nice saying of, well, if there is no release selfie, your release doesn't really count. Like back in the days when we used to work for companies maybe where we released to production twice a year, every 6 months or so, there was always like a big apéro, there were speeches, there were drinks, fantastic. And kind of all of this celebration disappeared a little with continuous deployments and making sure that we push to production frequently. Our release selfies are, in my opinion, a nice way to bring back a little bit of celebration for each release. And also, especially in our case, since we only have internal customers, show to our internal customers, hey, look, another release is done. And I believe every person has like their own stories about these release selfies. For example, Silver Selenium you see here, that was my third day at Climeworks. I'm going to be honest. I had no idea what we just pushed to production exactly, but there was a release, there was a selfie, there was beer. I was happy.
Yeah, the one on the top right is called Kiwi Krypton. Yeah, for that one during lunchtime we said, oh well, it's called Kiwi Krypton, right? So let's buy some kiwis, and we actually decorated them. So the kiwi on the left you could see is Ken. He really wanted to be part of the re-selfie, but he wasn't in-house, so we made him a kiwi for him. And the kiwi on the right is Kiwi Krypton himself, as you can see on the bottom picture. The middle one is pink plutonium. As you might have seen, there's also a pink release rocket there on the monitor in the middle.
All right, let's summarize what we've talked about. First of all, DevOps in enterprise IT. Yes, it is possible. You can apply DevOps practices across a network of internal applications. Then we showed you our custom-built integration layer. If some parts of your architecture are already very fixed, maybe make others flexible, and always consider using tools and technologies you already have the knowledge for. We talked about measuring DevOps. The metrics and measures you take and make visible is what people will aim and optimize for. So be careful when you choose those. And last but not least, make releasing fun again. If you want people to push to production frequently, make it easy, make it fun. So we started our talk by saying, yeah, we hope that you can find some inspiration in sharing some of our stories. And I definitely hope you have seen some ideas, and doesn't matter what shoe size you're wearing right now, always remember that the most important step to take, it's not the first step, it's the next step. Always the next step. Thank you.